I kept saying there is something bigger, there is something more going on. I think he turned over some rock, and he shouldn't have turned it over. But I know that he didn't kill himself.
We will now journey deep into a portrait of terror for one Mr. Rey Rivera, formerly of Baltimore, Maryland. He took a step a little too far, a step leading you and he to that perpetual place in time where mystery and shadow bend light into darkness and usher in whispers of things that go bump in the night. Don't shoot the messenger and join me for another episode of the Fear Chronicles. In this case, we will play out 3 long-standing theories that have already been discussed and introduce a 4th. Along with the physical, mental, and scientific evidence, or lack thereof, we can now look at the spiritual. Did you know that the Belvedere Hotel is considered one of the most haunted places in Baltimore? Opened in December of 1903, kings, presidents, authors, politicians, and movie stars have made it a point to stay and live in the Belvedere. At one time the tallest building in Baltimore, it is renowned for murder, suicide, and ghostly activity. A perfect backdrop to unravel the Rey Rivera suicide-murder case and unpack the multidimensional trunk of evidence that surrounds the unsolved mystery. Physical evidence, or lack thereof. Rey Rivera's body was found on May 24, 2006 at the Belvedere Hotel. Rivera went missing from his home on May 16th, shortly after receiving a phone call from the Agora Publishing switchboard, for which he was employed as a subcontracted videographer. After several days of searching for clues to his whereabouts, family members found his car located at a parking lot off of St. Paul Street in Baltimore's Mount Vernon neighborhood near his workplace. Rivera's co-workers, George, Steve, and Mark, went to the top of the parking structure near where the car was discovered in search of clues to find their missing colleague, and noticed a hole in the roof of the south wing of the Belvedere Hotel. Reason number 1 for changing undetermined classification for cause of death. The fact that his co-workers found the hole raises some inner circle connections that were discarded and not followed up by law enforcement. One of these workers had info to share about the gay connection and Rey's disappearance, but it was not taken seriously. Police soon discovered Rey's partially decomposed body inside a conference room under the hole, which his co-workers fortuitously discovered. As police began investigating, it seemed odd about Rivera jumping off the main roof of the Belvedere onto the lower roof 177 feet below, partly due to the style of the roof and the distance traveled. This suggests that Rivera came from the roof and traveled a horizontal distance of 45 feet before impact. He would have had to run at least 10 miles per hour, which is a fast jog for a male with a minimum run of 15 feet to carry him down the 177 feet to make the hole. At the time, the world record for the long jump was 29 feet. Rey would have had to beat the world record to make the jump. Reason number 2 for changing the classification of undetermined. The physics, along with the rooftop impediments, rule out Rey's ability to make the jump. There are much easier places for Rey to jump from. The balcony, for example, could easily be accessed through tenant rooms or unused office spaces, making it much easier to make the jump. Based on marginal security and Rey's familiarity with the hotel property and staff, gives pause to believe he leapt from the roof at all. Rivera's glasses, phone, and flip-flops were found relatively intact on the lower roof near the hole. The medical examiner ruled cause of death undetermined. The police think suicide and step back from their investigation and any further digging into the strange events surrounding his death. It doesn't appear Rey's DNA was found in or around the hole, and no roof material was ever mentioned as being present during the autopsy. Fact number 2, the autopsy report shows no cervical trauma, no spiral breaks to his legs, no accordion-shaped compaction of the skeleton, yet his skull was fractured, causing his head to be misshapen. These injuries are more consistent with being beaten with a baseball bat than a jump from an extreme height. Fact number 3, workplace dissension. The company he worked for had been under investigation for fraud concerning false investment tips. One of the reasons Rey decided to part ways from the firm and get into videography. A strong undertone of Freemasons and secret societies leading to global wealth and political power were ever present, which led Rey to become interested in Freemasonry. Fact number 4, break-ins and intercompany distrust. There were attempted break-ins at Rey's home days before his disappearance, leading Rey to show signs of paranoia, along with a strange note found behind the computer dealing with Freemasons, among other things. After Rey was found dead, his best friend and employer, Porter Stansberry, issued a gag order on his employees so that no one could talk to police without an attorney. Yet someone from Agora Stansberry and Associates called Rey's house. Whatever was said caused him to leave immediately, and he was never seen alive again. The police never found out who made the call. Fact number 5, the roof and hotel cameras at the Belvedere were turned off the night Rey disappeared, but they were functional the day before, the 15th, and the day after, the 17th. Rey was not observed on any of the hotel cameras either entering or leaving. So was he ever at the hotel? Some speculate he was killed off-site and placed in the room post-mortem. The hole had been there for quite some time, made by falling debris from the architecture, but this and other murder accident scenarios will be unraveled in Part 2. Fact number 5, the primary investigator, Mike Byer, was taken off the case. He was the only detective doing heavy background checks and suspected foul play. He was marginalized by his superiors, who claim he was getting too close to Rey's wife to be objective. The chief, the prosecutor, and the attorney general are all believed to have Freemason ties, with possible connections to other powerful Freemasons in Baltimore. The day of his death, Rey met with a Freemason to discuss membership possibilities. Number 7, FBI rules out note behind computer as suicide note. They said, and I quote, "People don't hide suicide notes. They leave them in a place where people will find them." Fact number 8. Medical examiner concludes Rey's injuries are not limited to someone who jumps from a great height. They're also consistent with someone who was beaten or run over by a car. Fact number 9. People who worked at the Belvedere knew Rey Rivera. They would have said something when questioned by the police, but nobody saw him. No video recordings of Rey coming or going from the hotel exist. Rey had been at the rooftop bar and went out on the roof to watch the sunset many times, but for some strange reason on May 16th, the hotel cameras were not working. Or perhaps they revealed that Rey was not even on the roof on May 16th. Fact number 10. Rey had a money clip. It was his prized possession, and yet it was missing from the items placed by the hole, which include his cell, flip-flops, and glasses. Years earlier, a man had jumped out of the Belvedere from the 8th floor. He landed on the street and broke almost every bone in his body. Rey supposedly jumped from the 13th floor, and he had much less damage. Now you're starting to get the picture. Detective Byer believes someone staged the crime scene and that the hole was too small for Rey's body to fit through. He was eventually pushed out of the case for approaching it like a crime scene for murder and not suicide. The police kept getting anonymous calls after Rey's death to retrieve his laptop from police evidence. I wonder why. Was there something in the laptop that was incriminating to someone in power?
I think he turned over some rock, and he shouldn't have turned it over. But I know that he didn't kill himself.
Tune in for part 2, where we will discuss both new and old theories that can only point to homicide as we unravel the strange case of Rey Rivera. Sometimes the truth is gut-wrenching and life-changing. Talking about someone's death is extremely difficult no matter what the circumstance. With so many theories out there for public consumption, I want to take a moment to give sincere condolences to Allison, the Rivera family, and all those who knew and loved Rey Rivera. The 6 determinations for cause of death are natural, accidental, suicide, homicide, undetermined, and pending. Currently, the Rey Rivera case is classified as undetermined. Unconvinced that her husband committed suicide, Allison spoke privately with a medical examiner about her findings. She told Allison, and I quote, "I know what they are trying to do, and we're not closing this case. The injuries are consistent with a fall from height, but the breaks in the tibia and fibula are not. What I am going to say is based on many hours of research, information gathering, and reading hundreds of blogs promoting theories from aliens to CIA cover-ups. It brings some solace to think of all the people that want justice for Rey. Out of all the information, one small piece of copy sticks in my soul. It is so small that it barely deems mentioning, but the devil is in the details, they say. I'm not accusing anyone or any entity of committing this crime. I am merely following the breadcrumbs, and without more substantial evidence, this case will remain unsolved." William Bonner, founder and president of Agora Publishing, the parent company for Porter Stansberry and Associates, made a comment concerning Rey Rivera's death. And I quote, "His death had nothing to do with Agora Publishing or the SEC investigation. He took his own life because of personal issues he was struggling with," unquote. We know that Bonner called Porter Stansberry about Rey's death and could only have drawn these conclusions from talking to Porter. But here's the rub. Porter told everyone that would listen that his friend Rey was a happy-go-lucky, upbeat guy with plans for the future, including an upcoming vacation with his wife, Allison. Why would Stansberry tell Bonner that Rey took his own life because of personal issues he was struggling with? It's a subtle piece of misdirection with catastrophic implications. It's about public perception, which leads to item number 2. The call Rey made to Porter Stansberry after church a week or so before he went missing. Allison recalls that Rey got Porter's voicemail and left this message: "Hey man, I just figured it all out. Call me back." But Porter never did. Weeks later, when the police asked Stansberry what Rey meant, Porter said he did not understand the voicemail and had no idea what Rey was talking about. Again, subtle misdirection. Why did Porter Stansberry, a wealthy businessman, only offer a $1,000 reward for his best friend, yet, after some PR pushback, raises it to $5,000 and hires a private investigator? Again, the key is public perception. After Rey's body was found, Porter issues a company-wide gag order to his employees. No information in or out. He doesn't want Rey's death bringing negative attention or scrutiny down on the company. I guess Porter needs to define what the term best friend means. He also discontinues dialogue with Allison and distances himself from the death of his best friend. It starts to paint a picture of self-preservation at all costs. When Stansberry heard the Netflix Unsolved mystery case was going to run, he sought an injunction to prevent the show from airing. The reason he gave, it put he and his company in a negative light. Maybe Porter is afraid too. From the moment Rey began working for Stansberry, he was introduced to the world of high-stakes stock trading and its cast of powerful characters. Porter was great at weaving stories of powerful political intrigue, along with financial empires that ruled the world via the stock market. Most of the people in these stories had ties to Freemasonry and secret societies dating all the way back to the Founding Fathers. This was fascinating to Ray, who had little knowledge of power structures and how they worked in society. He just wanted to work the job, earn enough money to marry his fiancée, Allison Jones. Stansberry put him to work writing about potential stock tips for investors on Stansberry's client list. Ray was a good enough writer, but clearly uncomfortable giving investment tips to strangers about something he knew nothing about. You know who wasn't uncomfortable? Porter Stansberry. Why would someone who is so concerned with public image give this job to a novice with SEC allegations hanging over the company? Along the way, Ray became familiar with alleged stories of people being marginalized and even killed for exposing secrets that could damage powerful people or entities. At some point, Ray became paranoid about the things he had seen and heard while working in the office as a tipster. I think he began to keep a log on his computer and was probably compromised by a co-worker. He needed a way to ease out of the company and decided to become a videographer and do film projects for Stansberry and other companies as a subcontractor. I think Ray was interested in Freemasons because he thought it would lead to financial opportunities, and because he thought being on the inside would make him less likely to be marginalized or eliminated. Ray knew something and was definitely afraid for he and his wife's safety.
No lawyer has ever left your law firm alive.
This is why Allison begins to see paranoia and personality changes in Ray.
In this man's eyes scared me to death.
This causes Ray to craft a mysterious note found on the back of the computer at his house. It is a coded note and on the surface makes no sense without the primer.
What's the primer?
A link to the primer within the document is probably on his laptop, both of which were reason enough for attempted break-ins. After his death, there were repeated calls to the police station by an anonymous caller to obtain Ray's laptop. Ray had mentioned to someone at Stansberry and Associates that Allison was going out of town. It was then a plot was hatched to lure him to the office, as most of the employees were out of town on a retreat, so they could break in and get his computer. But what they didn't count on was Claudia, Allison's friend, staying the night in the guest room. When he received the call from Agora, it was important enough for him to drop everything and rush out. A strange feeling inside causes him to come back home briefly and retrieve the penny with the heart that Allison had given him as a reminder that she was always with him. Upon arriving at the office, he is greeted by 3 men claiming to be security for the firm. They take his cell and push him into a chair and begin to pressure him about sensitive material he had on his computer. With threats ratcheting up, they begin to threaten Ray's wife and goad him with, "We know where she is staying."
I would have told you about the briefest did.
If this thing reaches as deep and goes as high as we think it does, these men will do anything not to be exposed.
They continue pressuring him to turn over any information he has collected. Ray insists he is just working on a screenplay and that the information gathered is fictitious, but in reality, he probably had dirt on a lot of powerful people. At some point, Ray is mildly afraid, thinking to himself, this is Porter's pathway to initiation in Freemasons, similar to the movie The Game.
This is your game, Nicholas, and welcome to it. I'm here to let you in on a few ground rules.
There would be many tests before this thing was over. Interestingly enough, the name Porter is mentioned many times in the hidden note, as well as the movie, The Game.
I'm here to let you in on a few ground rules.
The note keys in on technologies within his lifetime. Could this be the groundwork for insider trading allegations from past and present that he had become aware of while working there? Some of the items listed are radio frequency identification, hybrid engines, digital music players, portable data assistant, flash drives, computer operating systems, horizontal drilling, Sudoku, Human Genome Project, Viagra, Invisalign, Da Vinci Surgical Robot, Plavix, Lipitor, Aprexia, Nexium, Prevacid, Zoloft, to name a few. There is a possibility that early warning signs of predatory loans propping up the housing market were being pushed in investment newsletters by Stansbury and Associate. But whatever they believed he had on them, it was critical enough to take drastic measures. At some point during the interrogation, they let him go, but keep his cell phone, not wanting escalation in the Agora offices. But Ray is now more nervous, and he begins to fast walk towards his car a few blocks away. Looking back, he notices two of them are following him. It's then he starts a slow jog and ducks into the Belvedere parking structure and heads for the roof via the ramps, not taking the stairway. About halfway up, a car begins traversing the garage toward the direction he is walking. Now he begins running. The following events are fiction and not supported by the findings of law enforcement. This theory is based on an accumulation of circumstantial evidence that would not hold up in a court of law. Upon reaching the roof, he realizes there is nowhere to run. And as he contemplates taking the stairway down, one of the men comes out of the doorway with a bat. Soon after, the car appears, and from the passenger side gets out, heeled with a metal pipe. Ray's first thought is to jump down onto the roof of the old swimming pool and racket court of the Belvedere and escape through the roof exit of the Owl Bar. His mind flashes to times spent there with Allison and co-workers, happier times, ignorant times. He couldn't call anyone. They had kept his cell phone as a means of extortion. He runs to the far end to see if any people might be passing by down below. It's then the car speeds up and clips him in the right leg, causing him to tumble. Now, it's fight or flight. He limps over to the handrail and without hesitation climbs over. This causes skid marks on the flip-flops. He hangs for a moment, letting his 6'5" frame dangle, and then lets go, turning a 20-foot drop into an 11.5-foot drop. The landing is hard and he feels immediate pain in his left ankle and foot, but he makes it to his feet and hobbles toward the Albar roof exit, leaving behind a broken flip-flop that was torn in the fall along with his sunglasses. As he reaches the door, he finds it is locked. He can't help thinking, this door is never locked during business hours. He had been out on the roof several times with the bartender who would step out for a smoke when things were slow. Turning, he sees that two of the men have dropped down onto the roof to come after him. Kicking off his other flip-flop, he lifts himself up onto the higher elevation of the roof, directly over the Owl Bar. By now, he is looking for anything he can find to defend himself with. And in the corner, there is a 4-foot piece of pipe made out of old metal sprinkler pipe. He stands and faces the two men. They start up again with threats and innuendo. All the while he is thinking, in the game no one got seriously hurt. It was all an illusion, but these guys have blood in their eyes. Then out of nowhere a third guy appears from the area of the Owl Bar exit. 3 is going to be hard, he thought. Ray nails the first guy in the ribs and sends him to his knees. This caused guy number 3 to climb up and enter into the ambush. While fending them off, the fallen comrade has crept up behind Ray and hits him in the groin with a shot that nearly cripples him. Then they start in on him with the bat and the chain, first to the ribs and then to the legs. After some moments had passed, they circle him like wolves looking for a sign of resistance so they can start in again. Laying there, I am thinking of my family and my wife. And the first time I kissed Allison, I will never forget it. The smell, the place, the warmth, and the softness of her lips. The scent of that particular lip gloss that melted into my mouth with her embrace. In the background, faintly, it sounds like music coming from the owl bar. Is it possible he left the door ajar in his haste to come and teach me a lesson? If I could make it to the door, I will have passed the initiation. Game over. But first, must collect myself and gather my strength. A short run and a 5-foot drop and it's game over. From my knees, I rise up slowly with the intent of pouring myself over the ledge. As I stumble forward through the gauntlet, the music from the owl bar is calling me home. As I make it to the edge, I am sent on my way with one more shot to the back of my skull, propelling my leap upward and onward. Time is a funny thing. There is a gradual occurrence that nobody pays much attention to, the process of perfect order becoming chaos. Years of heat and moisture slowly breaking down at the molecular level. The moisture of the pool along with the heat over time compromise the interior structure of the roof, creating a weak spot. As it happens, 265 pounds was enough force to cause the structure to fail. Can't rule out the possibility that Ray started the hole and they finished it. Either way, with a badly beaten body, the fall through the roof was enough to puncture his heart, fracture his face and neck, create a compound fracture in his leg, raid his lungs, break his jaw, tear up his torso, break his pelvis, and take his life. When the hole was discovered, his cell phone and glasses were laying nearby. His flip-flops were maybe 50 feet apart, but nobody dusted the phone for prints. In part 3, we will field the top 10 scenarios for Ray's death as posted by the legion of people who care about finding the truth of what happened to Rey Rivera.